Hi and welcome. Well, here I am I'm in a hotel tonight because I'm down in Birmingham and had planned to go online a lot earlier. I was planning to go online about 11 o'clock. But yeah, journey from Hull to Birmingham, it should have taken about 2.25 hours. Ended up taking getting closer to 4 hours, thanks to the M1 being closed, and then off on another road, and some other road got closed, and I was sent off somewhere else. And by the time I finally got into Birmingham, it was also closed, the main road into Birmingham. I could not believe it. So it's been a bit of a tortuous journey down from Hull. But I'm just going to carry on some of the stuff I was talking about last night, which I see I put on my main Facebook page instead of here on Pep Talk, but I shall correct that. But I've really been talking this week all about storytelling and the way in which you can use storytelling in your speaking, in your business, and stories are really important for any business. And probably the most important story of all that you need to be working on is what I'm going to call your signature story. Now, before we look at your signature story, let me just talk about types of stories, because there are anecdotes, there are fables, and there are stories. Now, an anecdote is a short story, and most big stories can also be chunked down into a short little story, the kind of thing that takes 60 seconds to tell. A good story usually needs a bit of development. It's going to take, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Some stories can be very big stories. Sometimes I split stories up into 2 or 3 pieces. We tell a part, we go off somewhere, and then we come back to it, and then complete the whole story. Got to watch what you're doing with that and know where you're going. But the key difference between an anecdote and a story is the conflict. And that was what I was talking about last night. If you're telling a story, it needs to have conflict. So if you're looking at your signature story, that what we're asking from a signature story is, why do you do what you do? What is it that got you here? What got you into this business? Now, to make that for that to be a compelling story, you've got to find some challenge, some conflict, something you personally had to overcome to get there. And if you think about I don't know whether you've seen the story of Facebook and how that got started, and look at all the conflicts that Mark Zuckerberg have faced in getting that simple little idea. He gets an idea from a couple of guys who don't really know what they're doing with it, but he can see the potential, sees a way to move it, ends up finding himself in a huge court battle over who owns what, and puts this whole thing together. And there was enough of a conflict to turn it into a movie. If you look at the Steve Jobs story, I mean, Steve Jobs went through, built Apple, and then lost it all, got thrown out, came back. And to be honest, and you look at Apple, I mean, prior to that, Apple was dying. It really he'd got it to a stage, but it was very much a cult type computer. Yes, successful, but not the level that it is now. It's after Jobs came back that he then suddenly saw the idea and the concept behind the other products. But look at the challenge he's gone off. He's set up Next, he's set some other computers done. Big challenge to get himself back to then retake over Apple. So there's a story. And in fact, there have been 2 movies made about Steve Jobs. Amazon, okay, I know it's a very quick story. Guys started in the basement. I think Apple was started in a garage as well. A lot of Facebook started in a student residence. All of these places, things started in areas where you wouldn't expect the world's biggest organisations to have come from, but they did. Now, I know there's a huge, big success stories. Yours is just as important, just as valid, just looking at your basic story. I'm transgender. I talk about transgender issues, and I have an interesting story about that. I hadn't planned to come out. In 1999, that was furthest from my intention. I just set up the PSA. I was about to become master of did become master of a Freemasons lodge. All sorts of things were happening for me. I just published my 2nd book, ABC of the World Wide Web. I was speaking internationally on back technology, and then all of a sudden, Well, I'll tell you the truth that happened. I had not sorted my taxes out. Bang. Huge big bill. Just avoided bankruptcy by the skin of my teeth, but I lost my house, I lost savings, everything went. Yeah, absolute stupidity. Should have sorted it out, should have kept on top of it. Ended up paying way more than I probably needed to or should have done, but once they say that's how much you owe, it's a big battle. But I lost the relationship, and out of the relationship I was in suddenly came a threat to out me to the world. Now, I was quite well known in the financial services press. I had 2 or 3 columns in the financial press. I was very well known as a speaker around the life insurance industry. So there was no way that me coming out was going to go unnoticed. People knew me too well. So being threatened to be outed, I thought, I cannot have anyone have that amount of power over me. So I decided to tell a few friends, 2 people in the industry. I was doing a lot of work for an organisation called The Exchange that was responsible for sort of making the whole financial services industry get online. And I'd been very much involved for 10 years on doing roadshows all around the country. So everybody knew me quite well because of that project. And I told a few friends there. It turned out somebody I didn't know was gay and thought, hey, and he was out, and other people were coming. So actually I found that it was quite well received there. People didn't have too big a problem. The Exchange was moving on. It had been taken over and was going to be closing down. I went up to Hull and suddenly thought, what am I going to do? So I came out, and within 6 months, I didn't have any work at all. Absolutely shut down. So my assumption that everything was going to be okay was completely wrong. Everything basically just closed down. I had 1 or 2 bits of business around, and even they told me that they had been put under immense pressure to reconsider booking me. It was a risk. Why take a risk with someone who's transgender when you can hire somebody who's just normal? And that was the problem. People really were uncomfortable. We're talking 20 years ago. People were very uncomfortable about someone being transgender. A bit different today. It's almost becoming a badge of honour. But I don't know, people are still a little bit uncomfortable. People are still a little resistant to taking a huge risk when it comes to booking a speaker. So I thought, well, if people won't book me because I'm transgender, what do I have to do so that they will book me because I'm transgender? And the answer was become an expert in gender. And it happened. I'd gone up to Hull, stopped with some friends for a while because I'd abandoned where I was. I'd moved away. I needed to get away from everything in my past, and I just thought I need a break. And so I came up to Hull, and I just checked out Hull University, and it happens they had a really good gender department. I managed to persuade them to let me go on to their master's course. I was actually thinking about going for a PhD, but having done the master's, I decided that was probably enough. It was a research-based master's degree, so I spent 2 years researching transgender issues, reading about all the issues, getting involved in student politics, getting involved in diversity, getting involved in all sorts of, I was president of the Postgraduate Society, got involved with all sorts of things in Hull, and it took about 5 years. Within a space of 5 years, I completed my master's degree, I got involved in a whole bunch of things, and suddenly people were asking me to speak about trans issues. And essentially, I've been speaking about trans issues ever since, because there aren't that many of us around who can speak. So that's my signature story. That's the story about how I ended up doing what I'm doing and the passion that I had. I've got another part to that signature story, which I'm going to be talking about at the Professional Speakers Association convention in a couple of weeks' time now, on the 5th of October. And that's a story about how it nearly never happened. So I'm going to leave that one. I'll talk about that one after I've done it at the PSA, because that's a new talk. It's one I've never done before. It's a story I've never told. Well, not as a mainline speaking, as a keynote speech. So there we are. This is the whole thing you've got to think about. Start thinking about your signature story. What is it that got you doing what you do? Why is it so important to you? Why are you putting your life into this business that you're in? What's the motivation behind it? How did you learn the skills that you have in order to do this job? And think about the conflicts. What were the challenges you had to overcome on the way to getting to where you are today? Because that's the bit that's interesting. If it all happened, it was all dead easy, it was given to you on a plate, and that's probably not going to make a good story. You need to find some conflicts, and if you haven't, just search around for them. You must have. Nobody really learns and grasps their business and grasps what it is they're talking about until they've really got hold of the idea or got hold of it and fought for it and had to battle with some conflict. That's the story you're looking for. So think about that. That's one of the best stories you can get. Yesterday, the day before, I was talking about Aristotle's three great proofs: ethos, logos, and pathos. Ethos, you may remember, is all about credibility. Logos is all about the facts, and pathos is all about the story, the emotion, the engagement. And your signature story should contain elements of all of that. It's establishing your credibility. Why you are important, why you should be the go-to person in this business. Why, if somebody wants advice and help in the area that you work, you're the person that they should go talk to. Happens to me all the time. I was on Radio Humberside on Monday morning because I'm well known. I actually run a training course about 10 years ago, and the DJ from on the program was on that course, remembers me, and got someone to call me to say, would I come in just to review the papers? And that's going to be an ongoing thing. It helps me just to go on the local radio, have a quick look at the papers, and of course that gives me a chance to pick on topics that relate to what I do for my business, a chance to promote my business to the local audience in Hull, which is good news for me. So all the time, there are all sorts of times you're going to use your story. You've got your credibility. What are the facts? What are the details? What are the dates? Well, a little bit of the information around that, but most of all, it's that story of passion, the conflict, the way you had to overcome some difficult challenge to get there. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about the hero's journey and some of the other types of stories. Remember, stories have to have conflict. If it's just a quick little story about how you got here, kind of thing you might do as an intro at a networking meeting, it takes 30 seconds, that's an anecdote, because you're not really building with the conflict. Although you might be able to, even in a very short story, you can sometimes get the conflict into it of the big challenge you had to overcome in order to get to where you are. Fables and parables I'll come back to at another time, because that's the kind of things that you'll hear from the Bible. It's the Grimm's fairy tales, the animal story. Often it's animal stories, to be honest, fables. They're folk tales. And the thing about a parable which differentiates them is that there is a moral, and it teaches a moral in those stories. And they're interesting to use. It's better to try and find ones that not everybody else has told. Don't tell the starfish story. Everybody knows that one. Find one that's not there. And in fact, when I do my keynote at the PSA, I'm using a parable as part of the close of that, one that not many people have heard. I know that because I very seldom hear anybody. I've only ever heard one other person tell it, and that's the person I got it from. But I've found it online, so the story is around, but it's not that well known. So that's what I look for when I'm looking for a parable style of story. So story types: anecdotes, fables, stories of conflict, but the most important story you need to work on, you really need to get right, your signature story. Why is it that you do what you do? Why are you the expert? Why should I come to you? That's what needs to be in that story. Gives me some sense and idea about why you're an important person in that field. Okay, I'm going to get myself off to bed now because it's really, really late, and get myself ready to go do some transgender awareness training tomorrow for the NHS here in Birmingham. And I look forward to seeing you later on. Take care.